Alrighty, so I don't really normally talk to the camera. This is quite new to me, but I'm trying to make the best of this whole having my own Instagram thing and not necessarily being as limited as normal. I thought I'd give everyone a bit of a walkthrough on what I have going on, what my equipment is, why I have each piece, and also while I'm at it, wearing a beanie because lockdown and I've just got way too much hair. I've spent the morning in the snow and it's quite comfortable, so so basically, I don't know how much you can see from there, but my setup has developed over the last 3 months. I started Specialty Coffee in about October, and since then I've tried so many different little bits and pieces, calibrated tampers, non-calibrated tampers, different distribution tools, so on and so forth. But I thought, you know what, I'll give you guys a walkthrough of everything I have and why I have it. So obviously I don't need to touch on things like tamp mats, but the first thing I'd like to go through is my scale. So this is the Time More Black Mirror scale. It comes with a timer on it, which is not going to show because I've not set it down. So it's got a timer for shot timing, and it also has grams to 0.1, 2, 3 to help you really dial in and make sure you're getting the right grams. Dosing cup. This just helps me measure my beans easily to put them into the hopper, and yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. This one here, dosing ring. This is because to make sure that the basket could fit more coffee in it before I tamp it down. Oftentimes it can overflow or you get a bit messy. This just keeps things together, and it makes it a little bit easier. While I'm at it, I have a beautiful rosewood handle on a bottomless portafilter. For people that don't know, bottomless portafilter, or also known as single wall, just means there's a lot less, we're not going through a pressurized basket. Pressurized basket will create a false crema, basically meaning that it might look like you have a crema, but your coffee is going to lose a lot of that natural oil. The flavor is not going to be quite as rich, and essentially you're short-changing yourself and you're not getting the best out of your beans. Wouldn't recommend one of these if you don't have a good grinder. Until I got my grinder, which I'll get onto soon, I was struggling to pull really good shots. I just couldn't grind as consistently. I had a grinder that's really great for filter coffee, designed for filter coffee more than espresso, and I think that's going to come in handy when I get around to summer and I want to do some filters and V60 cold brew, things like that. But at the moment I was really struggling to pull a good shot with espresso, but this thing here now pulls an incredible shot. Since I've got the Eureka Specialita Mignon, got this bad boy in chrome, thought might as well go all out, and to have since actually upgraded to a 3D printed single dosing bean hopper. I got this off Etsy out of the States. It actually replaces the original hopper, which is much larger. It's also clear, so you see a lot of the coffee bits, the residue gets a bit messy, whereas this just really keeps everything together nice and neat, which is what you want. After that, obviously I've got a bunch of different cups. I've got myself some espresso cups if I'm just feeling lazy, can't be bothered putting the milk in, frothing the milk. I have a great set of John Lewis cups and saucers, which you've probably seen in other videos. I've got 2 jugs, originally depending on how much coffee I wanted to make in one go, but I've actually found that this second larger one, I use it more just to collect the water, to clean out my group head and things like that. It looks nice, but I don't really froth the milk in it much because I'm mostly making one drink at a time. This here is one that I've received a couple questions about. I thought I came up with this idea, but ever since I've seen it all over the internet. Basically it's a cork. I put a few sewing needles in it, spread it out, and basically this is for what's called WDT, or Weiss distribution technique. essentially put it in, shove it all around your coffee, and it will break up all the clumps, which is quite nice. Just means you'll get a more even extraction, less likely to develop channeling in your espresso, which is basically, if you imagine a worm crawling through an apple and leaving a hole, it's sort of what channeling is. It's the path of least resistance, basically meaning that you'll end up getting lots of spurts, and because of that, the pressure will not build up properly in your puck, and you'll be missing out on a lot of the coffee extraction that you could have had, because all the water will just go straight through that channel and ruin your extraction. So things like WDT can really help that, and also a really good distribution, which is why I have the distribution tool. This one here, calibrated tamper. I do also have a regular tamper. The difference is that, as you can see on this one, it's spring loaded for roughly about 30 pounds, which is what they say you should have. I've heard differing opinions on whether you need a specific pressure or whatever, but the aim of the game in espresso essentially is consistency. If you can remove any inconsistencies, you won't find, you'll be able to repeat your espresso, you'll be able to get good espresso every time, and you won't get those shots that are horrible and you want to throw down the sink quite as often anyway. So having a calibrated tamper means that my tamp pressure is the same every time. Also found this beautiful one on Amazon. Unfortunately it wasn't prime, so it took me about a month or so before it arrived, but it has a beautiful wooden finish and really goes well with my rosewood portafilter. So a big fan of that one. This one's now in the cupboard. Obviously, things like a thermometer, self-explanatory. Generally, when frothing milk, you want it to go to between 60 and 65 degrees. Anything over that, you might end up cooking the milk, burning the milk, losing a lot of that nice sweetness and caramelization. So I generally use this to try and make sure that my milk is consistent. Sometimes I will not use it just to see how I go, but then oftentimes the milk is either overly frothed or not enough. General rule of thumb is I put this in, I generally add air to the milk until this is about 30 degrees. So I've got the milk about 30 degrees Celsius warm, and then I will submerge the wand and get it up to the 60-65. That way I've at least created some form of consistency with my milk, and I'm making sure that it doesn't, I don't over put too much air in it, which then can mean that trying to do any form of latte art is near impossible because you just end up with a big lump of foam on the top. Which is fine if you want to have a cappuccino, but that's not exactly my thing, so I try to avoid the cappuccinos. This one here, I just dust all my coffee with this brush. Any little bit of coffee around my basket and anything, this thing's a lifesaver. Also helpful for cleaning up things. You know, you've got your coffee grinds on the little thing here, anything like that, it's just a lifesaver. I guess over to the machine, let me just... So this thing is not the greatest. Budget entry-level machine called the DeLonghi Dedica. Originally it comes with what's called a Panelero, not sure, wand, which basically is also known as an auto frother. It basically adds a lot of air into milk. It's really hard to get microfoam, and it basically makes latte art impossible. Perfectly fine if all you want is cappuccino, once again, but you know, if you want to do any kind of specialty coffee, you want to do some latte art, you want to put tulip on there, rosetta, you know, you're not going to get that with the base wand. So I voided my warranty, pulled this baby to pieces. It was a video on YouTube that made it look like it'd take about 10-15 minutes. Took me probably an hour to work it out. Thought I'd broken my machine, but in the end I didn't. So, you know, I'd recommend swapping the steam wand to anyone that's semi-handy, but I'm not the most handy, and I did find it challenging, but definitely worthwhile, because without that I don't think I could use this machine for all the purposes that I want. The reason I've got this here, and you may have seen this in some videos, is because the normal drip tray vibrates too much and I can't fit my scales on it. the scales go all out of whack and I can't measure the grams coming out of my coffee. So I put this here. I actually do have some cork stoppers that I've got coming today from Amazon. I'm going to glue them to the bottom of this bamboo board so I can get rid of these little sauce containers and make this look a little bit neater and more like a permanent piece. The Dedica pulls perfectly fine. Espresso shots, pre-infusion is pretty lack, so I like to manually press the shot button really quickly just to deliver a bit of water on the top of the grounds. I do that twice. That way the water will cover the grounds on the top, slightly seep through, but with no pressure to pre-infuse, and then I'll run my shot through it. So that generally means that the coffee comes out much better. I get a lot less channeling, and you get a much more even extraction. So that's just a little tip for anyone using a cheap device. Switch it on, switch it off, let a little bit of water on, do yourself a manual pre-infusion, and you get a lot better experience with it. So I am planning on upgrading this probably in a few months. Need to save up for it. The machine I'm getting is not cheap. This one's about $189 in pounds, and the one I'm getting is over $1,000, so I'm going to be saving for quite some time, and yeah, it's not going to be fun, but hopefully my game will level up. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, let me know. I'll try to do this sort of thing more often, and just sort of, yeah, cover what I'm thinking and try to give people tips. I think it's really important to talk through these things. I am really early in my barista game. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Most of this stuff's coming from a lot of research, reading Facebook groups, YouTube, forums, and just to understand and learn the best ways to do things, especially from a beginner. So if anyone else is out there and they're just starting out, or anyone that's experienced, if you want to drop some suggestions or whatever, but yeah, I think there's something to be said about seeing someone go through the journey and working it out from there. But yeah, until next time. Just as a little bit of a post point, I've looked at the video after recording it, realized I completely cut my face off the whole time, so I'm basically recording this little bit to add to the end just to save everyone's comments and questions about it. We'll keep that in mind more in the future.